Thank you very much and welcome back to Race Industry Week 2023. We are joined by the great Jeff Hammond, three-time NASCAR crew chief champion. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, y'all. Hope you are having a wonderful day. I love the start so far with Phelps and everything you've done so far. I mean, great start to the industry week.
Absolutely, and we traveled to Europe with the DTM, to the Dakar, now RJ, and we have a big lineup waiting for us today. And so the next session is going to be a very special engine builders, right, Judy?
Yeah, I'm very excited. I've wanted Andrew to come on with Ilmor Engineering for a couple of years now, so we have him this year. Jeff knows all that they're involved in, so this is going to be an educational webinar here. Here comes Andrew.
Morning, everybody.
Hello,
Good morning,
Thanks
Andrew.
for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Jeff, we'll let you take over.
Thank you very much, Sarah Francis and Judy, and we'll see you shortly. Andrew, good morning. Hope you're having a great day and hope you had a little time off and ate a little turkey.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, had a few days off there. Like I said, celebrate Thanksgiving, had some family over, and yeah, we're in the off season here, but it's anything but off, as I'm sure you know.
That's right.
It's it's some of the busiest days of the year here during the off season for us as we get ready for the start of the 2024 season.
You know, with that being said, how about giving us a little history of Ilmor, as far as it pertains to you, okay? I mean, because I know we could get really, worldwide, international wide as far as Ilmor is concerned, but let's really try to focus on, what goes on in your world.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll keep it somewhat brief, but I'll go back to the start of our spec engine program, which the ARCA Ilmor 396, which was came out in 2015 with the ARCA series, and it was designed as a cost saving measure for teams, and it was intended to be very consistent, low cost per mile engine that teams could migrate to and get somewhere on the order of 7-8 races out of each engine between rebuilds, and yeah, improve, like I say, the cost of teams, as well as improve competition. Make the engine side of things less of the story. Take that into 2018, and we came into the NASCAR Truck Series with a derivative of that engine, and then a further derivative, largely a different engine, was also built and provided for the SRX series, and we continue with the ARCA, the Truck Series, and the SRX series today, along with some other derivatives that we've come up with for other things like track day cars and other high performance racing stock car type focused cars. So.
Okay, with all that being said, this, if you can give us a brief overview, how many engines do you guys build in a season? I mean, in a year, when you get ready to start, like I mentioned, 2024, what is usually your inventory? And we touched on the series that you're helping. So what kind of inventory do you have to carry?
Yeah, annually we build, between ARCA and the Truck Series, as well as some of our other smaller stuff. We would build, and also including SRX, we'd build about 280 engines a year, and that's pretty average. I would say we don't have a lot of ups and downs; things stabilize pretty well there. But yeah, right around 280 engines a year.
I guess one of the first things when somebody who's maybe listening here, and folks, just remember, if you have a question for Andrew, please, feel free to send it to us, and we'll make sure he gives you an answer, or we'll give you an opportunity to be able to get in touch with him so you can get your answer. The thing is, when you're doing this, and let's just say, for instance, you pick the series. I'm gonna let you pick the series. How do you maintain? Because everybody knows 1 or 2 horsepower is a big deal to most crew chiefs and drivers. All right. So how do you maintain that kind of I guess you might level playing field when you build your engines and you get done with them? Is it a hard thing to get repetitive stuff? Because I know back in the day, and it's a totally different world now, because we were always trying to find that a little extra. So we were doing something a little different with the cam or changing the valve angle. You know what I'm saying? We were doing stuff to try to find horsepower. So when you get an engine better, oh yeah, we're going to take this one here. But in your case, you know, you've got to have a target number you're looking for. I would, you know, the way I understand it, and that's what you're shooting for, plus or minus, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. So we, you know, per our contract and what we generally tell people is, we are required to supply engines that are within 1% of best to worst. The engines must be within 1%. Now, over the course of an engine's life, it'll go out for a race, especially like a short track race. It'll pick up a little bit, and it'll also, towards the end of its life, start to fall off a bit as it wears out, and it's time for it to be rebuilt. So to really bookend it, we need to be able to stay tighter than 1% when the engine leaves the door to account for it picking up a little bit and then also falling off a little bit. So as engines are built and dynoed here, we hold them to 0.6%, just over 0.5%. Within a window of 0.6%, we have enough wiggle room to allow the engine to increase a little bit in performance through that first race as it, quote unquote, say loosening up, and then also fall off a little bit. And so it's a challenge to say the least, and it's taken us, we're always improving on that topic, and it's taken us years to really get to a point where we, every single engine comes out of the build shop and goes down a dyno. We know it's going to be within that 0.6 number, and it really just comes down to quality and consistency on the assembly side to ensure that things are the same engine to engine. It's having good suppliers. It's having suppliers provide parts that are the same as they were from day one to today, and like I say, also making sure that our builders are applying the lessons learned from years past, and making sure that everything's assembled the same way as well.
You mentioned SRX, ARCA, and the Craftsman Truck Series. Out of those three series, are they interchangeable, or do each series have a little bit of a nuance, or does the series directors want you to build them a certain way and have their kind of like their own identity?
Yeah, the SRX engines are really kind of on their own. They are unique, but the ARCA engines and the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series engines are actually allowed to go from series to series. So you could take an ARCA engine, or as an ARCA team owner, even you could say, well, all right, we're gonna try out the Truck Series, and you could take that same engine over to the Truck Series and race it there. Vice versa, maybe you want to do a driver development program as a Truck Series team. You can take your Truck Series engines and run them over in ARCA. Performance is exactly the same. The costs are a little bit different from an ARCA engine to a truck engine, but that's really due to some parts that are of a little higher quality in the Truck Series because they run longer races. They go to more big tracks, places like Texas, places like Vegas, places that the ARCA Series doesn't go to. And so, for those reasons, the ARCA engine on its own doesn't need the higher dollar parts. But yeah, it's between the ARCA and the Truck Series engines, even looking at them on a stand, there aren't many differences external that you could identify, and internal, there's very, very few differences. The rotating assembly is between an ARCA engine and a truck engine is identical. The pistons, the rings, rods, crank, are all identical. There's a few little differences, like I said, up in the top end, and performance-wise, they're exactly the same. So,
with that being said, the thing I'm curious about is when you go to the racetrack, you see these teams. You guys, you don't have to bring an engine tuner, do you? Because you've got people there that are overseeing your engines, correct? I mean, that your guys have to monitor these engines, and we want to explain to me like how that works on a weekly basis, especially during race weekend.
Yeah. So come to the racetrack, you unload and roll through tech typically, and in the tech line, we'll have guys there that are flashing the ECU for that weekend's calibration. They are looking under the hood for anything that may be sticking out, maybe like a spark plug wire laying on the header, maybe a power wire that could chafe, or an oil line that's maybe close to something. Just a general overview of things, making sure you're getting wide open throttle, making sure everything's connected and hooked up. And then some guys on the inside, we have a data log that we install that we've developed, and then Also looking over some wiring inside to make sure there's nothing that might trip us up during the weekend. Following tech, trucks will go out on track, cars go out on track, whichever. And while out on track and coming in and out, we will be downloading data from the ECU, looking at it, reviewing it, seeing if there's anything like fuel pressure issues or battery voltage stuff, or just anything in general. Looking looking at the health of the engine, making sure temperatures are in check and that sort of stuff. Following practice, if there's any issues, or during practice, if there's any issues, say show up there and starter gives up for whatever reason, we have a support trailer there with parts. All of our guys there are trained on working on every aspect of the engine, as well as some aspects outside of the engine, some car side stuff. Help with, say, a starter replacement as an example. And then get you back on the way, and post practice, review all the data, provide information to teams, liaison between teams in NASCAR, teams in ARCA for any repairs that may be needed. Help to make sure that there are officials present if necessary, and that sort of stuff. And then roll that all over into qualifying again, just as a support role if anything comes up. By that point, cars and trucks are typically in impound, so it's hands off at that point, but just kind of on a maintenance mode. And then in the race, if something comes up, we'll have guys in fire suits on pit road. And again, if something happens during the race, we'll have parts, we'll have tools, we'll have guys there, go over the wall if needed, and help out with whatever might need help. So.
That's the good thing. I have had that experience with your organization with the Craftsman Truck Series a few years ago. And I was very impressed, with everything you said. And folks, you need to understand this. When he says go over your truck, I mean that. I mean, they'll come back and say, hey, you need to put some heat sleeve against that oil line. It's getting against the header, or you need to put a tie wrap here, or give it or something. You guys are not just going through the motions. You take what you're doing seriously, just like you were part of the team. And I thought that was commendable, because it's hard to find people who, number one, are willing to make that extra effort to get up underneath something and look in areas and check under the dash. And I think the other thing is, explain just a little bit about the flashing that you're talking about each weekend that you go through, and the reason why, and how you arrive at that particular program.
Yeah. I mean, largely from a performance standpoint, it's there's no changes week to week. But as weather changes, if we're coming into a 95-degree day compared to maybe we're compared to looking at the 24 schedule, say like a March Bristol, where it's going to be a little bit cooler or something like that. The engine too needs to be a bit different, right? We need some more fuel here at some places, less so at other places. So we just we need to ensure that everything's the same week to week by way of the calibration, by way of the engine flash, and so this year was a bit new in the Truck Series. The ARCA Series has had it for a while, but the Truck Series adopted the digital dash from Holley this year. ARCA Series has had it now for a couple of years, but our guys will also go in and we will apply the proper firmware to the digital dash to make sure that it's functioning as it should. Teams are still allowed to customize it, put gauges with whatever ranges, whatever lights, that sort of stuff, all in there on their own. That's totally customizable by the team. But as far as data collection, things like that, teams are now able to access data in the Truck Series through the dash, and we ensure that the dashes are set up properly as part of our tech line inspection process. So,
I've had somebody ask the question. We talk so much about Ilmor. If we do business with Ilmor, do we own the engine? And then how do they regulate the number of miles or laps? And how do you constitute when you say you need to rebuild this engine? And let's just say you give me a number, and let's say the number is 1,200 miles. Have you got to run so many miles on that engine before you'll rebuild it? Or, what kind of rule and regulations do you deal with there? Is that a series decision, or is it a Ilmor decision?
Yeah. So to your first point, yes, the teams own the engine. It's not like the typical stock car, national series type of relationship where majority of teams lease an engine. Teams do own their engine in the ARCA Series, Truck Series, and the recommended service life for the engine is 1,500 miles. being as the team owns the engine, it is their decision if they decide to bring it in for a rebuild earlier for whatever reason, take it longer if they want to take it longer. But the team does own it, and it is their is their choice to rebuild it at whatever mileage they see fit. Largely speaking, most teams will rebuild them right around 1,500 miles. If for some reason the engine has a problem, say say you have a 1,000-mile engine and it goes to Talladega and is in a hard wreck, right? It's maybe knocks the accessory drive off the front, runs without oil pressure, runs without a water pump belt, runs hot, runs without oil pressure, whatever the case is, and you decide, right, our schedule is coming up here is going to be pretty tight. We don't want to have to run out the last 500 miles of this engine and then put it into the rebuild cycle and wait for it to come back. Let's just rebuild it now. We have some time. We'll certainly we'll do as the team requests. Like I said, the team owns the engine, so at the end of the day, it's their decision. By the same token, if you bring 1,000-mile engine to us and say, right, ran without oil pressure, ran a little hot, could you guys take a look at it and maybe avoid rebuilding it, but just replace what it needs? We'll do that too. We'll rework it, as we call it, and that helps teams. The ability to kind of go in two directions there: just repair the engine and let them continue running it, or rebuild it, bring it back to them fresh, and give them the opportunity to make the engine available then for another 1,500 miles. It just depends on the situation, depends on the desires of the team, and we monitor average rebuild mileages to ensure that things, primarily from a cost standpoint, are still achieving our objectives. Right, the end goal, the spirit of the program is to reduce costs, to provide a level playing field as it relates to the engine, and to make sure that there aren't teams that are getting out of line on that sort of stuff, and rebuilding stuff really early or anything like that. And today we haven't had any teams that have gotten in hot water on anything like that. Everybody adopts the program as it's intended.
Oh, that sounds really great. I mean, and again, having experienced so much of that, it's like I say, it's almost like having that crew member, but not owning that crew member, and you get the benefit of your experience and anything that, like I say, what I also love about it, if there's an issue within the program, everybody knows the issue. You know what I'm saying? We need to take a look at your, whatever. We're seeing something here we got a little concern about. And when you were talking about rebuilding the engine, I wanted to make sure, again, that our viewers and listeners understand what you mean. If I bring an engine in and I say, look, I'm worried about something and my valve springs or my heads or whatever, can you do something about that and make sure I hadn't hurt a piston? What will that entail? Will y'all pull the heads and check the spring tension and stuff like that, and maybe rebuild the heads and just put them right back on the engine if you don't find anything wrong? Is that how you do it?
Yeah, it depends on what's happened to the engine. We have, after doing this for so many years, we've seen a lot of things, right? And so we kind of have some standard operating practices where, you talked about valve train stuff. Say driver misses shift or something like that, right? Just accidentally misses shifts as an example, and say over revs the engine to whatever 9,000, 10,000 RPM, something like that. And so we have a group of guys in North Carolina, full-time guys in North Carolina. We also have our shop here in Michigan, but the guys in North Carolina will do an initial inspection on it. And if there's no damage to the bottom end, if there's no piston or valve contact or something like that, the guys in North Carolina, they'll leave the heads on, and we have the tools in place to be able to do the top end work, to replace lifters, to replace springs, rocker arms, whatever it needs, retainers and the whole bit, and just do the work that's necessary. Do the work that we've determined over the course of years and kind of validated, replace the parts that are compromised as a result of whatever happened, whether it's an over rev or an overheat or running without oil pressure, whatever it is. Fixing the bits that need to be fixed and leaving the parts of the engine that are intact and unharmed or unaffected by whatever it is that happened alone, and saving the teams the money that would otherwise be spent on stuff that was okay.
Okay, all this happens. Do the series directors want to know that you've gotten this engine back? Do they kind of like work hand in hand, or they just totally rely on you as far as something that's going on? I mean, is it something that you have to pass off to the Craftsman Truck Series guy that, hey, we rebuilt the number one truck's engine over here. We found a, saying, do they keep up with what you've done?
Yeah, so I say largely they're hands off on like the day-to-day detail stuff.
Mm-hmm.
However, we stay in constant communication. After every race, there's a phone call with the series that we talk through whatever issues were going on. And then at the end of the year, we do a big summary, and we go through every issue line by line. We go through the team's averages and things like that for rebuilds, and we talk through whatever it is that's going on. But we have a really good relationship with the ARCA series, a really good relationship with the Truck Series, great relationship with the SRX series as well, and we have a lot of regular communication, and they're up to speed on the issues. But by and large, they kind of let us interact with our customers directly, and we keep them apprised of whatever it is that's going on. And like I say, we do summaries and we do phone calls and things like that often, and keep them in a loop on whatever it is that's going on.
Well, speaking of anything going on, Phil Nels would like to know, do you serve any international series? If so, how do you handle servicing and rebuilds internationally?
Yeah, Ilmor in the U.S., we don't serve any international series today. There has been some discussions before. I think it would probably just depend on the situation, depend on how many miles and how often the intervals would go. Years back, we've done international series and support for international series before, and it's certainly doable. It's just a matter of doing whatever's appropriate for that particular series, for that particular situation.
Is there any series right now that's looking at possibly using your service with, we have potential of growing Ilmor as far as and the similarity of the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series as well as SRX? Those right there are three great series that are really benefiting from your work and your service, as well as the savings. And again, I can attest to the fact, it's like anything else. I mean, you always want to save anything you possibly can, and you guys have proven over the years to be very reliable, day to day, week to week. I mean, that's the thing is, everybody I've ever talked to that's been involved have got some high reviews. I mean, we all know engines are engines and parts are parts, and you can't always guarantee that a part's not going to give a problem. You do everything you can as far as making sure you use the best parts possible and give them the greatest opportunity to survive. But stuff happens.
Yeah, that's right. Stuff happens, exactly. Yeah, it's as far as other series go, we're always looking for other series. We don't have anything right in the forefront right now, but we're always looking for other series, areas to grow. Maybe not this exact engine platform, but any engine platform. We're really, we talk a lot. Obviously, you and I worked a lot on stock cars and NASCAR world and the ARCA world, that sort of stuff. But we're really an end-to-end supplier. Ilmor Engineering is an end-to-end supplier. Customer comes to us with some engine request. Maybe it's a 4-cylinder turbo, or maybe it's a V6, whatever it is. And we would love any opportunities for stock car or otherwise to grow a program like this or otherwise.
You were talking about your folks and everything. Again, you got people here in North Carolina, right over here in Mooresville, at your own shop right there at Team Penske, correct? I mean, unless you've moved and I didn't realize it. But how many people between Michigan and Penske do you have that work for Ilmor?
Yeah, between Michigan and Mooresville, we have about 140 people, and then of course our sister company in the UK, they have a similar number of people over there as well.
Bill also asked a question here, since we're getting close to the end of our time period. I'll try to answer this question: is what are your common track day applications? I think you kind of explained most of them, but I guess he didn't quite hear all that. You mind going over it one more time?
Yeah. It's I would say the most common one is a V8 that's, I wouldn't say it's based on like our spec engines, but it is like an LS Gen 4 GM Gen 4 based V8 engine with a dry sump oiling system and a in some version of a stock car or a stock car that's been repurposed to run on road courses or something like that. Kind of like I mentioned a minute ago, a real end-to-end, solution for somebody where, there's an ECU, there's a wiring harness, everything is assembled and provided, throttle body to oil pan, alternator, water pump, oil pump, the whole engine, bell housing, the whole assembly, with an ECU and a calibration sent out to a customer. So, that's like I say, Gen 4 GM based engines are most common to answer Phil's question there. Yeah.
Real quick, also, we didn't touch on this. We talked about rebuilds. How many rebuilds do you try to get out of an engine? I own an engine, but yet, I've been racing it, and we've gone 1,500, and you rebuild it, you rebuild it again with 3,000 miles on the block. Where do you call is enough, and we have to start over?
Yeah, so they're really, we have mileage limits on every part in the engine, and some of those mileage limits are inspect and continue to use. So, for example, a good one would be like an intake manifold, or a valve cover, or a valley tray, or an oil pan, something like that, where it comes in, we crack check, we clean it, we ensure everything's okay, and then we'll continue to reuse it. There's engines in the single digits, like engine number 5, that's still out in the field today, running laps. And it's had the block replaced, it's had the crankshaft replaced, it's had connecting rods, cylinder heads. It's been, it doesn't share any similar parts except for, like I say, maybe valve covers, intake manifold, maybe a valley tray, things like that. But it's still engine number 5, and that helps us really from a maybe we call it like a paperwork standpoint. Keeping miles on components, keeping miles on an engine, not having to deal with creating new numbers for engines that are, maybe reusing parts or something like that. So, we try to get 4 builds out of a block. We try to get, upwards of 10,000 miles out of a crankshaft. We've got mileage limits, like I say, on connecting rods and cylinder heads, and we do other checks, with cylinder heads, whether it's cylinder head hardness or, seat height measurements and things like that to ensure everything's still within a serviceable life. And again, it goes back to your earlier point about performance and being able to maintain performance. You have to kind of keep your arms around the parts and not let them run for too long. Otherwise, you will lose the performance consistency, right? You'll end up with an engine that's higher in higher in miles and lower in performance, or something like that, or similar to it.
Right.
So it's important for us to keep a close watch on those things, replace parts when they're worn out. And it provides consistency.
Well, Andrew, it's really been a pleasure to host you today, and share the success of Ilmor and how it's still affecting not only SRX but the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series as well as ARCA. And again, being a competitor, I really appreciate the service and the due diligence that your company puts out there each and every week for all these series.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I appreciated talking with you here today as well.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Great honor to have you on, and what a great company you represent. Thank you.
Registering on ePowertrade is easy. To start, click on the Join for Free button on the homepage. First, search your company to see if it's already in our database. If you see your company on the list, click on it to select it. Then, choose Claim Company if you are one of the decision makers, an owner, marketing person, or main company contact. Or choose Join Company if you are an employee, and press Continue. If you couldn't find your company in our database, select Register a New Company. On the following page, fill out your name, email, phone number, job title, and choose a secure password. If you chose Register a New Company, you'll need to choose your business type. Select Supplier if you're looking to display products or services and connect with buyers. Choose Racing Business if you're looking to source new parts and connect with suppliers. Choose Race Team if you own or are a member of a professional race team. Then, enter your company name. Please provide a website, Facebook page, or LinkedIn if you have one, and choose to either claim or join the company. You can view and agree to our terms of use here. If you'd like to receive our weekly newsletter, choose Accept. Finally, click Register Now and your registration will be submitted for approval. An email will be sent to your inbox. Please confirm your email address and you will be approved shortly. Welcome to ePowertrade.